The weather archetype, sometimes referred to as the weather painters, are a series of primarily level 3 fairy-type monsters that all take inspiration from a weather phenomenon that is also mixed with a medium for an artist's expression. Think painting with brushes or drawing with a pen. Things like that. Each one of the main deck weather monsters is also themed alongside a colour of the rainbow, which is also what colour paint or ink the weather phenomenons will be drawn in. And, if you didn't know, the reason why rainbows appear in 7 different colours is because sunlight passes through water droplets in the air. The white coloured light of the sun is then refracted into the 7 colours of the spectrum. What are those 7 colours? Well, just sing the rainbow song to remember, of course. Red and yellow and indigo and green, violet and orange and blue. I can sing the official colours of the rainbow. The official colours of the rainbow. Sing the official colours of the rainbow too. Right, I'm never doing that again. Now, some observant viewers may say, well, hang on there. There are only 6 main deck weather monsters, with their link monster Rainbow being an obvious combination of them all. So, who is missing? Well, sadly, there is actually no weather monster that represents the colour red. And as such, it would be safe to assume that at some point in the future, the weather painters will receive a new weather monster and canvas support card to accompany them. So this is the perfect question to ask. After the video is finished, post a comment down below what you think the final weather monster's weather phenomenon will be and what artistic instrument they will wield. Leave your guesses below and let me know. But anyway, the weather cards were first introduced in August 2017's deck build pack Spirit Warriors in the OCG, and 3 months later they would be released in November 2017's Spirit Warriors pack in the TCG. A simple archetype in design, but in terms of their archetypal effects, they actually require a lot of forward thinking to be used, making the archetype quite layered, almost like a painting, if you will. Hey, anyone? Cool? Basically, their archetypal gimmick is they all have abilities that allow you to add a weather canvas spell or trap card from your deck to either your hand or directly to the field. These continuous spells and traps are important as it what gives the monsters their best main effects. The crux of the deck though is that the canvas support card's effects can only be given to a monster that is in the same column as it, and then, by extension, those that are adjacent to that monster. However, since the weather monsters all share the same ability that if during the standby phase of the turn they were banished from the field to activate a weather card's effect, you can special summon the banished monster back to the field. This means you can bring them back in whichever column you like, making the deck have a very tactical amount of play with how you can strategize with placements. So then, without further ado, how about we take a look at each one of the monsters, see what phenomenon inspired their designs, and what instrument they create their beautiful works of nature with. Starting with the Weather Painter Snow, known in the Japanese as Snow Weather Seal. Her effect is, when this card is normal summoned, you can place 1 weather spell or trap from your deck face up in your spell and trap zone. You can only use the effect of the Weather Painter Snow once per turn. Once per turn, during the standby phase of the turn after this card was banished from the field to activate the weather card's effect, you can special summon this Spanish card. Blue being her colour of choice, Weather Painter Snow is associated with the weather phenomenon of snow. I mean, you would have guessed it, right? I'm pretty sure. But did you know snow occurs when minuscule ice crystals inside of clouds stick together? This merged form is what we refer to as snowflakes. And if enough of them stick together, they become heavy enough to fall all the way down to Earth as snow. We see this in the artwork of this monster's canvas support card, as Weather Painter Snow is creating her weather phenomenon through her artistic weapon of choice of an airbrush, which we see her utilizing by spraying the snow into the sky in order to blanket the mountain village with that good white stuff. In fact, if you ask me, it really captures an essence of a fresh start. The old covered by the new. Yes. A specific canvas support card is called the Weather Snowy Canvas, known in the Japanese as Snowy Weather Conditions. Its effect is the weather affect monsters in your main monster zones of this card's column, and its adjacent columns gain this effect. You can banish this card. Quick effect, add 1 the weather card from your deck to your hand. Also, you cannot add cards from your deck to your hand for the rest of this turn except by drawing them. You can only control 1 the Weather Snowy Canvas. The Weather Painter Painter Rain, known in the Japanese as Rain Weather Lazula. Her effect is, if this card is special summoned, you can place one The Weather spell or trap from your hand face up in your spell and trap zone. You can only use this effect of the Weather Painter Rain once per turn. Once per turn during the standby phase of the turn after this card was banished from the field to activate the weather card's effect, you can special summon this banished card. Indigo being the colour of choice for the Weather Painter Rain, her associated weather phenomenon is that of rain. These are all going to be pretty obvious, so try to act surprised when I reveal the phenomenon, please. However, did you know that rain occurs when vapor rises up into the sky? It then cools and changes into water droplets. This then forms a cloud. Then, as the water droplets in the clouds join together, they become bigger and bigger until they get so big and heavy they fall as rain. In fact, the reason why Weather Painter Rain's background is so dark is because clouds that are full of water droplets appear very dark in color. This is because the large water droplets block out any light from the sun, which is something that is further emphasized in Rainbowy Canvas's artwork, as Weather Painter Rain is sitting on the darker clouds compared to the other weather painters. As well, we see that in the artwork of this monster's canvas support card, Weather Painter Rain is creating lines in the sky with her artistic weapon of choice of a marker pen. These lines seem to be very densely packed with ink, and as such the ink is dripping from the lines created in a similar fashion to that of actual rain clouds. And, fun fact, the rain is also falling onto that same mountainous village as the one in Snowy Canvas, which now gives the scene a much more melancholy atmosphere, which is rather intriguing, as now just a change in weather can affect the interpretation of the painting. In fact, if we look at it, there seems to be a hint of a brighter tomorrow encapsulated at the edge of the painting. Oh, I'm sorry, I slipped into an art critic then, I do apologise. Her specific canvas card is the Weather Rainy Canvas, known in the Japanese as Rainy Weather Condition. Its effect is the weather effect monsters in your main monster zones of this card's column and its adjacent columns gain this effect. You can banish this card, then target one spell or trap your opponent controls, quick effect, return it to the hand. You can only control one the Weather Rainy Canvas. The Weather Painter Cloud, known in the Japanese as Cloud Weather Slet. His effect is, if another face-up the weather card you control is sent to the graveyard, you can target up to 2 the weather spells or traps in your graveyard, place them face up in your spell and trap zone. You can only use this effect of the Weather Painter Cloud once per turn. Once per turn during the standby phase of the turn after this card was banished from the field to activate a weather card's effect, you can special summon this banished card. Violet being the colour of choice for the Weather Painter Rain, with his associated weather phenomenon being that of clouds. Ironically, clouds are the main conduit for the majority of the weather phenomenons we are going to be talking about for this archetype. But how do clouds appear? Well, they form when rising air cools to the point where some of the water vapor begins to smush together. The typically invisible water vapor then begins to condense, now becoming visible to form a cloud. You can see some light references to these water molecules in the artwork of this card, through the ink splotches dotted around the art. In fact, we see in this monster's canvas support card Weather Painter Cloud is drawing the outlines of said clouds above a calm sea, using his artistic weapon of choice of a fountain pen, which, like a real fountain pen, seems to be drawing ink from a cartridge located inside of it. And sadly, we see that the little mountain village is not present in this card's artwork, which honestly I'm a little bit upset about, as I kind of hoped we would have the village being drawn in each one of the different weather events, using each of the different drawing methods. I thought it would have been kind of cool, because each of the weather fairies could like come to the little town to bless them with their like phenomenons, but it doesn't matter, it looks awesome nonetheless. And I was going to do another interpretation of how this artwork makes me feel, but I think that joke has run itself dry. Seriously though, if you want to pretend the canvas cards are like serious paintings, and if any of you have done like an art degree or anything like that, give them some critiques in the comment section below, like list each one and give a critique about how the canvas card makes you feel. But speaking of, his specific canvas card is the Weather Cloudy Canvas, known in the Japanese as Cloudy Weather Condition. Its effect is the weather effect monsters in your main monster zone of this card's column and its adjacent columns gain this effect. You can banish this card, then target one face-up monster on the field except during the damage step. Quick effect, halve its current attack for the rest of this turn. But it can attack directly this turn. It can only control one, the Weather Cloudy Canvas. The Weather Painter Sun, known in the Japanese as Clear Weather Bengala. His effect is, if this card is in your graveyard, you can send one face-up continuous spell or trap you control to the graveyard, special summon this card in defense position, and if you do, place one the Weather spell or trap from your hand face-up in your spell and trap zone. You can only use the effect of the Weather Painter Sun once per turn. Once per turn during the standby phase of the turn after this card was banished from the field to activate the weather card's effect, you can special summon this banished card. Orange is the colour of choice for the Weather Painter's Sun, with his associated weather phenomenon being that of sunlight. However, to truly understand the monster, we must first know what sunlight is. Well, sunlight is a portion of visible solar radiation given off by the sun that has made its way all the way down to Earth. We can physically see and feel sunlight since it is a combination of a bright light and a radiant heat. We see in the artwork of this monster's canvas support card, Weather Painter's Sun is using his artistic weapon of choice of a paintbrush to paint the strokes of the sun's rays emanating in the sky. However, interestingly, unlike the other weather painters, whose ink is found within their instruments, Weather Painter's Sun is the only one to have to manually apply his paint to his instruments, as he holds a palette in his left hand. Though, I do guess all of them will have to reload theirs at some point. Like in the case of the Weather Painter Snow as well, she actually has cartridges, so I assume it applies to all of them. It's not like a never-ending magical supply of something. However, interestingly as well, despite the Weather Painter Sun's colour being orange, it seems as though he has other colours on his palette too, with red, orange, maroon and yellow. And in terms of the artwork, it is unclear where the scene takes place. However, it does appear up above the clouds, so I'm guessing it could be anywhere. So I like to think it's above the little mountainous village, but it's probably not right. However, I must admit that gazing up at the vibrant sun must really capture the hope of the earth. No, I'm doing it again, I'm sorry. His specific canvas card is the Weather Sunny Canvas, known in the Japanese as Clear Weather Condition. Not clear sunny weather condition, just clear weather condition. Its effect is the weather effect monsters in your main monster zone of this card's column and its adjacent columns gain this effect. You can banish this card, then target one monster you control. Quick effect, tribute that target, and if you do, special summon one the weather monster from your hand or graveyard, but not with the same name as the tributed monster that you had on the field. You can only control one the Weather Sunny Canvas. The Weather Painter Thunder, known in the Japanese as Thunder Weather Terma. His effect is you can send one face-up continuous spell or trap you control to the graveyard to place one weather spell or trap from your deck face up in your spell and trap zone. You can only use the effect of the Weather Painter Thunder once per turn. Once per turn during the standby phase of the turn after this card was banished from the field to activate the weather card effect, you can special summon this banished card. Yellow is the colour of choice for the Weather Painter Thunder, with his associated weather phenomenon being that of thunder. Yeah, thunder. I feel like lightning could have been a bit more fitting, but hey, who am I to judge? Thunder is the sound that always accompanies lightning. But why do we hear thunder when there is lightning? Well, it's because as the electricity from the lightning passes through the air, it causes the particles to vibrate. They vibrate so much that when combined with the air heating up through the electricity, the particles are also pushed apart with extreme force, creating even more vibrations and thus the noise we all know and hear as thunder. We see many allusions to this weather phenomenon in this monster's artwork, since he seems to be adorned with many lightning bolts on his person, and, as a side note, he's the only one of the weather painters to have horns. Could this be an allusion to the Japanese thunder god Raijin? Who knows, but what we do know is that in this monster's canvas support card's artwork, his artistic weapon of choice is that of a crayon. Now, crayons are usually associated with a child's drawing utensil, and this could thematically fit with this monster's inspiration, as children tend to use crayons to draw, and children can be quite loud and have outbursts every now and then, just like how thunder and lightning can also unexpectedly be very loud. Which is also hinted at in the rainbowy card artwork, by this monster seemingly to be throwing a tantrum, which ironically, he seems to be heading towards the darker cloud as well, as if about to start a thunderstorm. So it's very clever. I like it, good attention to detail. Also, if you look closely at the canvas card, we can see that the little mountain town is back. Woohoo! His specific canvas card is the Weather Thundery Canvas, known in the Japanese as Thundery Weather Condition. Its effect is the weather effect monsters in your main monster zone of this card's column and its adjacent columns gain this effect. At the start of the damage step, if this card battles an opponent's monster, you can banish this card, return that opponent's monster to the hand. You can only control one, the Weather Thundery Canvas. The Weather Painter Aurora, known in the Japanese as Polar Weather Lambla. Her effect is when this card is normal summoned, you can place one weather, spell or trap from your hand, deck or graveyard face up in your spell and trap zone. The opponent cannot target the weather spell or traps you control with card effects. Also, they cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. Once per turn during the standby phase of the turn after this card was banished from the field to activate the weather card's effect, you can special summon this banished card. Green is the color of choice for the Weather Painter Aurora, with her associated weather phenomenon being probably the rarest seen of the weather painters, as it can only occur in certain parts of the world. I am of course referring to the phenomenon that is an aurora, known by Aurora Borealis in the north, which means the northern lights, and Aurora Australis in the south, which means southern lights. The event is a naturally occurring light display, visible in the night sky. The phenomenon occurs because particles from the sun enter the Earth's atmosphere. These sun particles collide very violently with gas atoms in our very own atmosphere. This causes the atoms to give off a beautiful display of light. You'll notice that Weather Painter Aurora is the only main deck weather monster who isn't a level 3, instead being double the level of all of the others, with a further improved display of attack and defense points, as well as having 3 effects instead of 2. As such, this monster clearly is the standout star in terms of a real world phenomenon and presence in the deck. We see this higher level also reflected in the artwork of Rainbowy Canvas 2, as the card gives us better size comparisons between the monsters. And it seems that Rainbow and Aurora dwarf the others in terms of size. In fact, their demeanor indicates an almost parental role that they both seem to share over the other weather painters. You know what? I'd ship them, Aurora and Rainbow. Why not? We also see that in the artwork of this monster's canvas support card, Weather Painter Aurora is using her artistic weapon of choice of a paint roller to paint the night sky with her radiant phenomenon. Firstly though, it's kind of funny that she is using a paint roller as if like painting the ceiling of her room in her house. Also interestingly, we can see in the paint holder inside of her roller there are some pluses and minuses, which could be allusions to how there are two opposite forces colliding together to create the phenomenon. But FYI, that little mountain village is back, by the way, and I'm gonna have to put my foot down here and say that that place there gets some really varied weather conditions. It's had snow, rain, thunder, sunshine, just normal clouds, and now even auroras. What a place to live. Her specific canvas card is the Weather Auroral Canvas, known in the Japanese as Auroral Weather Condition. Its effect is the weather effect monsters in your main monster zone of this card's column and its adjacent columns gain this effect. When exactly one card is added to one player's hand, except during the damage step, you can banish this card. Banish the added card, and if you do, that player draws one card. You can only control one, the Weather Auroral Canvas. And finally, we have the ace monster of the deck and the only extra deck monster so far in the archetype, the Weather Painter Rainbow, known in the Japanese as Rainbow Weather RCL. Requiring 3 the weather monsters, when your opponent would special summon a monster, quick effect, you can send this link summoned card to the graveyard, negate the summon, and if you do, destroy that monster. Once per turn, during the standby phase of the turn after this card was banished from the field to activate the weather card's effect, you can special summon this banished card. The weather effect monsters this card points to gain the following effect. When a card or effect is activated, quick effect, you can banish this card, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. Associated with all of the colours of the rainbow and the painter who creates a rainbow as a weather phenomenon, she uses a paintbrush and a variety of paint tubes for her artistic weapon, with each of these tubes representing one of the weather monsters in the archetype. Cloud, rain, snow, aurora, thunder, sun, and to be confirmed. Her name in the Japanese of RCL is referencing a bit of a play on words with the French word for rainbow, l'arc-en-ciel. I butchered that, I'm sorry. Though her hair and nails aesthetically show all the colours of the rainbow, her main colour scheme seems to be that of the colour white, which would be her natural colour, since the sun's rays are visible as a white light. It is only refracted into the other colour spectrum as it passes through a water droplet, so it's pretty fitting. And as well, in the other other artwork of her support card, the Weather Rainbowy Canvas, which is called in the Japanese Rainbowy Weather Condition. Its effect is the weather effect monsters in your main monster zones of this card's column and its adjacent columns gain this effect. If your opponent controls a monster, you can banish this card, quick effect, special summon one, the weather monster with a different name than this card from your deck. Also, you cannot special summon monsters from your deck for the rest of this turn. You can only control one, the Weather Rainbowy Canvas. And PS, as a final little note from me, I think this is one of the most gorgeous artworks that Konami has produced. I like the fact that she has little paint marks on her dress as well. So yeah, I think she's probably my top 10 coolest artworks, specifically for like the female characters anyway. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed, guys, because that is another archetype done. Let me know what you thought in the comment section below. I want to give a huge shout out to the people that are helping to support the channel. Thank you first of all to my platinum Patreons, You Know You Do 97, J24092, Chowderman 36, and Spencer Davis, as well to my gold backers Dylan Cunan, Zwolf 18, Jack Sisson, Chungmin Zen, and David Shanahan, and as well to everybody else supporting me on Patreon, and a special thank you as well to my TGS YouTube members Shinjo CB and Reyes Sanchez. You guys are all the best and you are really appreciated. Thank you very much.